but I'll do that piece today. So the topic today is CSR, good to great. I recommend that we run the panel in a manner that each of you speak out your thoughts first, and then we can also round it up with a little bit of Q&A at the end of the panel. So if there are questions, please keep them for the end. We will have a 10-minute Q&A after the panelists have given their thoughts on the subject. So good to great, I would like to open the debate by saying how do we take organizations or corporates or countries to that extent on this path of good to great in terms of social responsibility? What are the key enablers or pillars that could possibly do this? Are those pillars the matrix by which we measure CSR? Are those pillars partnerships with like-minded NGOs? For organizations, are those pillars employees? Or is a pillar only what Dr. Ganeshan said in the morning? Is it straight from the heart and we should do good work? So let me start the roundtable with Dr. Wolfgang, if you'd like to take this ahead, Doctor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thanks so much and good morning, everyone. I feel I'm a little bit the odd guy here, I have to say, because I'm representing today the investors. So I'm not representing a company, although I have a background. I was 25 years chief executive at Munich Re, America, where we did a lot. We did a lot on kind of climate change and other issues. But today I'm talking about the investors. So how does this come across that I'm now here representing the investors? I remember in 2005, Kofi Anan, the then Secretary of the UN, invited 20 institutional investors to New York. And he said, we have founded, now 5 years ago, this was in 2000, the Global Compact, which is the global responsibility of business. And he said, I believe very strongly that you as investors, you as the state pension funds, you as the pension funds of corporations and so on, you have to play a very active role as well. So I invite you to develop the 6 principles of responsible investments and drive it through the investment chain. So I remember this day quite well because we were at the United Nations right on the top level at the restaurant overlooking the Hudson River, and it was beautiful, and Kofi Anan doing his inspiring speech. And then he said, so now let's go to work. And he moved us to the basement of the United Nations, and we sat down there in a room with no windows like here for 3 days, and we developed the principles. I have to say, when I left the room, I felt so-so, because there was a lot of bureaucratic, there was a lot of lawyers' talk, and we said, okay, we developed aspirational goals, but how do we really operationalize them? How do we really make them that it has a change in the world? So I had my doubts. So I now want to talk very briefly where we are and then give you a little bit of an outlook. So where we are, we now have 1,200 signatories who represent 34 trillion US dollars under management. They all signed up to the principles. So the first question is, okay, you sign up, but you don't do anything, so it's all greenwashing. So what we are doing is, every signatory has to report back on an annual basis what exactly are they doing, how they do integrate environmental, social, and corporate governance issues in their decision making. What are they doing? And for me, it's a learning path. I always compare it to the New York Marathon. We talked about sports yesterday, to the New York Marathon. And in my view, I would change the rules. In my view, it should be as much as possible participations. Every participant should be able to reach the finish line. And the goal would be that the average time of everyone participating every year gets better. So it's not so much the front runner, no, it's the mass. And it's kind of that everyone is on this learning curve, and therefore that's what we have to achieve. So where do we stand with the PRI? I said, mandatory reporting, we can exactly measure where are we in this chain. I remember the early years, we had to convince mainstream investment, why is ESG important? And I think we won this battle by now, because you can clearly highlight in saying, if you incorporate ESG in your investment process, you first of all avoid a number of disasters. You avoid a number of bad companies who are really, because if a company is managed badly, they're mainly managed through all the chains, and at a certain point, something will blow up. So if you look at this and you avoid them, you will outperform. Secondly, where is the future? What are the future economies? What are the future? How are companies positioned? So again, if you focus on it, we believe you can outperform. So this argument, in the meantime, I think major investment companies have bought into and believe into it. What we do, we have a huge network. We say, how do we get better? How can we better implement this? And so on. Second piece, which we are very strong, is together we are strong. Collaboration. So we have investors who engage with the public policy making, but mainly also with companies on various themes. And they have initiatives and saying, we want to have more impact. We want to hear more about your, let's say, carbon footprint. We want to have more disclosure. So they come together, and then there are, let's say, 100 of them, and they write a letter to the company. And they're saying, we represent now, let's say, 14% of your stock holdings, and we want to have this information. We want to have this. So again, the individual investor is not big enough, but together in collaboration, we can have an influence. We have more than 500 engagements in this field. We have more than 600 companies who are actively involved in this area. So a lot of success, I would say. But what lies in front of us? And here I would highlight 3 topics. One, we need to become a global institution. We are not global yet. While we have 1,200 signatories, from the mindset, we are underrepresented in a number of markets. For example, India, China, and overall Asia. So we need to focus here. We need to incorporate the thinking, because while a lot of the standards are global, it has the local practice, and we need to learn from local to global. Earlier this morning, it was mentioned South Africa. Well, on transparency, on reporting, South Africa is absolutely the lead. They have issued a CSR reporting mandatory thing, which is the world's best standards. They have a professor, Mervyn King, who is leading the integrated reporting. So again, bring in local to the global. So we need to be there. All what I said so far is rather simple, because you have a self-interest of the investor as well, drive performance. The second one, now to me, is a very, very difficult one, because it is the financial system is absolutely broken. It's broken in the Western world, and the investors are also part of it. And they haven't been able to step up. And they haven't been able to reach out and saying, well, we are part of it. We need to take our own responsibility. Yesterday, the CEO of Unilever mentioned, Paul Polman, and he spoke last year at the United Nations at the leadership program, and he said, well, every day if I go to such a panel, I first read the New York Times and see what's on the front page. So I did it today, not with the New York Times, but with a German paper. And on the front page is a Swiss bank who have been the leading bank in Switzerland on sustainability. And obviously, they're involved in some tax issues. But what I want to address today is they have been issuing bonds for a wind park. And to a large extent, and push them very much to their customers. they gained massive provisions by this.